calling Councillor Goss. I know there's a lot out there, social media included. So, welcome everybody to our meeting of the Cabinet of Colchester City Council. I have to always say, if there's an emergency, follow us. But it doesn't quite say that on here on the paper. It says, go evacuate the town hall, go down the main staircase to the back staircase, the High Street, under the car park behind the town hall. I'm not expecting disturbance. I shouldn't be concerned about that if we leave, as I say. Follow us if you have good intentions. The meeting's streamed live over the internet on the council's YouTube channel. It'll be available to listen afterwards. I know my colleagues want to see how they performed. I'm sure it'll be excellent. The use of mobile phones and other devices, including cameras, is welcome by visitors and members. You're requested to use them discreetly and not to disturb the meeting by voice or flash. And of course, as I don't want to fine myself, I, like others, will make sure that I'm on Do Not Disturb, which of course doesn't stop the wife ringing. Speakers are reminded at all times that microphones are to be used. Let me introduce the work of the Cabinet. The Cabinet's the main executive body of the Council. It's responsible for day-to-day decision-making on all Council services, makes recommendations to full Council on major policy issues and on the Council's budget. Cabinet's made up of 8 councillors, each of whom is responsible for a particular range of services. For those understandably thinking, who am I? My name is David King. I'm the leader of the council. I should invite my colleagues and supporting officers to introduce themselves. I must note a couple of things. First of all, that this is the new cabinet for the new municipal year. It was recently agreed by in full council. That marks the departure of some colleagues, much respected colleagues like Councillor Paul Smith and Natalie Summers. I want to thank them again for all they've done, and thank you, and obviously for Alison Jay as well. She's got another forward role to be important for the effective work of the council, but to all 3 of them, my thanks, and to welcome new members to the cabinet. Although I have to say, unfortunately, because of prior obligations, pre-booked, well before this happy moment of marriage around the cabinet table, Councillor Julie Young and Councillor Lee Scordis had prior arrangements for a few days away, so not together for those who are wondering. All right. That gets us through. Let's just go round the table, and Jocelyn, can we start with you? Could you introduce yourself and we'll swing round.
Okay, thank you very much. Councillor Jocelyn Law. I'm the portfolio holder for Communities and Public Protection and also Ward Councillor for Highwoods.
Philip.
Philip Sullivan, Chief Executive of Colchester Borough Homes and Strategic Lead for Housing for the City Council.
Thank you.
Anna D'Alessandro, Interim CFO in Section 151.
Richard Clifford, Democratic Services Manager.
Andrew Weavers, Head of Governance and Monitoring Officer.
Pam Donnelly, Chief Executive.
Thank you, Andrea.
Councillor Luxford Vaughan, Cabinet Member for Planning and Sustainability and Ward Member for Wivenhoe.
Good evening, Councillor Mark Corey, Cabinet Member for Assets and Resources and Ward Member for Wivenhoe.
Martin Goss Marlin, Ward Member and Portfolio Holder for Waste, Neighbourhoods and Leisure.
Chris Pearson, Councillor for Beerchurch and responsible for economic growth and transformation, and I don't plan on doing a Doctor Who regeneration during the course of the year.
Well, I'm pleased to hear it. Thank you to you and to Jocelyn in particular. We're welcome tonight. Right, item 2 urgent items.
There are none, Chair.
Item 3, declarations of interest. I invite Cabinet members to declare if they have any. Their distraction implies none. Thank you. Item 4, minutes of our last meeting, which was the 9th of April. Are we content? Thank you. Item 5, have your say. Graham Stelly is here on Neighbourhood Watch. Graham, you have spoken before, I've heard you. Do come forward, please, and join us. You have 3 minutes. Please do work out which button to press. The light will come on and then you're on. Thank you. Over to you.
Right. Neighbourhood Watch in Essex was formed in 1985 and today has something like 70,000 members. In Colchester we have 5,000, and with families and others in the same household, that's about 12,000 persons benefiting from what we do. In Chelmsford, there's a small team called Essex Watch, a team formed 20 years ago, but now facing the prospect of redundancy. If this goes ahead, no crime reports or other crime prevention services will be provided. 13 districts like Colchester will have nothing other than what we can produce for ourselves. Colchester's police, in theory, could produce the crime reports, but unfortunately, that may cause a problem with the unions. Moving a role to somebody else is not redundancy. But producing crime reports is partially automated. In fact, it's considerably automated. When it comes off the main computer, confidential data, like columns in a spreadsheet, are simply deleted, and then the reports are manually transmitted to myself and my 13 colleagues in Essex. Sorry, I've lost my place. 2 weeks ago, my report for Colchester arrived at 05:12 a.m. on Monday morning, and tendering got theirs 1 minute later. So again, I suggest it's not a hugely manual process. I'm here to ask councillors to call on the Police, Fire and Crime Commissioner and Chief Constable to think again or help find other ways that crime reports can be produced. I may be out on a limb here, but I'm not concerned about other services Essex Watch provide. So I've got 4 proposals. One is that we should stop reporting crimes that our members can do nothing to prevent. Crimes like criminal damage, antisocial behaviour. It's actually a list of about 30 types of crime, and it could be reduced to just 15. And included in that 15 would be all business crime as well, which we must continue to work upon. Another proposal is that 1 report for the whole of Essex would suffice. And when I would receive that, I just simply go through the report and extract from it that which is relevant to Colchester. I think districts should be responsible for presenting crime prevention sessions to local community groups. And I think districts should start to use artificial intelligence to generate advice on how crime can be prevented. I think you've all got an example of that distributed previous to this meeting. In Colchester Neighbourhood Watch, we believe very much in the maxim, you can't control what you cannot measure. And we merge all of our crime reports to enable us to do sort of hotspot reporting and so on. Now in 2023, we achieved a 30% reduction in crime and a further 20% in 2024. Now that's 1,676 crimes that didn't happen and 240 days of work that police officers didn't have to do.
Graham, would I just ask you to, you pass your time? I'm happy to wait a moment longer if you could bring it towards a close.
Sorry.
We have seen it, so...
But you've all seen it.
Thank you for submitting in advance.
The important thing is the table that shows the number of visitors to the town centre that are victims. That's what we've got to focus on. Was that really 3 minutes?
It's amazing how time goes by. Stay there, Graham. We'll come back to you. I'll ask the portfolio holder, Jocelyn Law, to respond.
Thanks very much, Graham, for coming along this evening. I know we've spoken before about this, so thanks for raising this concern with us here. First of all, I'd just like to say a big thank you for all the work that you've done over many years and your colleagues in Neighbourhood Watch. You know, it's so great the way in which you kind of enable and empower residents as well in terms of preventing crimes. That's a real community partnership approach and something that at the council we really believe in. So first of all, I just wanted to note that.
Thank you.
Yeah. Secondly, I have spoken and discussed and raised your concerns with Chief Superintendent Wahid Khan of Essex Police. Now, he told me that he has been engaging widely with a variety of similar Neighbourhood Watch stakeholders across the county. He has heard their concerns loud and clear, and he's been reflecting on the views that he's heard back. He is working to ensure that you continue to receive in the future the information needed to carry on with your work. He cannot give specifics right now about how that will work, but he's told me that will be, imminently in upcoming weeks. So I'm sure he'll be in touch with you direct. If not, he is going to keep me informed, and I will be in touch with you. In the meantime, you will continue to receive the information as before, so work can carry on. So really, I hope that that can go some way to allay, what is understandable, concern on your part, Graham. And you've got a further minute to come back if you want to sort of raise anything else.
No, thank you for that. Good news. I have had a conversation with Wahid, and he seems to be a listener. And other people like myself in similar positions were at that meeting and voicing much the same. Without the crime reports, there's no Neighbourhood Watch. There's nothing we can do without those.
Look, thank you for bringing it to our attention. If I might, Jocelyn, there's a couple of things I know that you could say at least as well, which is that we know, and we saw the Deputy Chief Constable just last week, how important is neighbourhood policing and the role of the community. Community intelligence, and just to stress it, the repeated reporting, the sense of weight to an issue that comes from the public saying, I've seen this or I've seen that, even if their neighbours reported it, not trusting somebody else has done, but raising an issue and reporting it, gives weight and support. And those flags then affect how the police respond. So what you're doing is part of that bigger picture, but I just want to say in fairness to them, there's strengthening neighbourhood policing. It's great that you've had good listening, and thank you, Jocelyn, for being involved, and thank you for coming.
Thank you. Thank you.
Right, the next item of our agenda is move on to there's two items around housing. One of the most central and crucial issues of our time, having a home, keeping it, and temporary accommodation. Philip Sullivan will give us an entree to both of those reports. Over to you, Philip. Thank you.
Thank you very much. The first report, the Housing Status of the Nation, provides several topical housing updates. The first update is in respect of the Spring Statement, and for housing, the three main announcements related to a £2 billion top-up grant for the new affordable housing, planning reforms and welfare rights. The availability of additional grant is welcome locally. It will support the Council's growth ambitions. However, the reduced welfare spending will impact on a number of the city's residents. The Government Spending Review is now set for the 11th of June. A key element of the review is the renewal of the Affordable Homes Programme. So we've had the £2 billion announced in advance. We're expecting the substantive announcement to be on the 11th of June. The sector is also looking for a long-term certainty and a focus on social rents. Outcomes and implications of the spending review will be reported to Cabinet in September. The homelessness update in the report highlights the sharp end of both the national and local housing crisis. Nationally, 43,000 households, a rise of 47% in a year, are accommodated in expensive nightly paid accommodation. In Colchester, at the end of March 2025, the total number of households in temporary accommodation was 459. That's an increase of 42% from the same time last year. The number of children in temporary accommodation in Colchester was 481. One of the ways that we're managing this crisis in Colchester is through the use of former private sector student accommodation. This provides a much improved standard of accommodation at significantly reduced cost. Supported housing, there is also a real challenge in supported housing with a perfect storm of funding cuts and rising cost pressures. And whilst lobbying is taking place to protect supported housing, Colchester isn't immune to those challenges, and the report highlights how we're grappling with those challenges locally. The government is trying to create conditions that support growth in housing through changes within the planning system, and we wait to see in terms of how that delivers towards the government's target of 1.5 million homes in this Parliament. Costs across the social housing sector continue to rise, and from a housing association point of view, spending was 13% more in existing homes in 2023-24 compared to the previous year, and 55% more compared to 2020 pre-pandemic. This shows that the challenges of rising costs and competing demands for finite resources aren't just in Colchester, and they're not just in local authorities. It's a sector-wide issue, and it emphasises the timeliness of us in Colchester developing a sustainable housing revenue account. And then finally, we have a number of changes coming for the private rented sector arising from the Renters' Rights Bill, and the Housing Board within the City Council is taking an overview of this to ensure the implications for the City Council are managed. If I stop there and open up for any questions, thank you.
Cabinet members, colleagues? Mark.
2 points really just to make, Philip. So thank you for your update and your vigilance on the changes and how they are implemented here locally, and your continued efforts against the continued rising tide of people seeking accommodation in council housing and us needing to reach to temporary accommodation. I just wanted to make the point that the housing review that we've been doing has also been really informative. It has been to all members. We've had our opportunities to take part in the workshops, and we are trying to ensure that we find the balance of providing the best decent home standard to people, whilst also trying to squeeze out of our housing revenue account the best investment possible in building new council accommodation or acquiring new council homes. So I think the review that you have carried out along with Savills as our sort of independent partner has been really thorough and has given us the best advice about how to move forward. And I think we're going to move forward with other members' buy-in, with the cabinet buy-in, with a right balance between getting the best quality homes but building more at the same time. So I want to thank you for that review as well.
Thank you. Any other comments? If not, I'll some closing remarks from me and we'll go to the recommendation, which is to note. But from my perspective, if there are none, thank you again for a refresh of a running commentary at the highest level. We need that because we need to encourage awareness of the national context and how we're fitting in it. There's a few things that are worth saying. At the strategic level, the work that's been done in Colchester has been applauded. I can see Councillor Riffinger at the far end of the room. I know you wanted to speak. You can speak now if you wish to want the next item. Okay, so I just want to sort of say, put on the record that work, which was Councillor Paul Smith led with you and your senior officers with the Kaylee's help and the support of the rest of the team, the cabinet and senior team. You know, it's worth remembering. It's not very often that you get acknowledgement from number 10. All right, so, you know, well done for that and well done to us all. But the true story and the real focus has to be about the hardship that hundreds of families without accommodation they face. And something we don't talk about enough, and perhaps I can ask you in a future iteration of this to paint the picture a bit more richly in this one respect, is around the fact that there are thousands of people in the borough who are on the edge of homelessness. They're getting by because they're being helped by friends or family. They're being, I find myself doing this sometimes, subbing their children or grandchildren, or they're being helped by your team. And I think we've just got to kind of look at it in that wide way. We've got a generational crisis. It's taken a generation to get this deeply into it. It's going to take, unfortunately, a generation to get out of it. And your team do tremendous work in ways that isn't seen. And so please pass on the Cabinet's thank, I'm sure members would agree with me, through you back to those who are doing that difficult work of dealing with people who are in distress or on the edge of it and need your help and support. So a really big well done. Thank you. The report is to note. We so agree? Thank you. Thank you very much, Philip. Before we go to the next item, perhaps Kaylee, would you like to come up now? I know you had a statement. If that's okay, you'll be in the middle of our sandwich, if that's all right.
Always happy to be in the middle of a sandwich, you know that. Thank you for having me tonight. When I saw the report come up, I felt that I'd been too involved with it and I had to speak. I'd like to take a moment to express my strong support for the City Council's proposal to secure an additional 113 units of temporary accommodation by repurposing former student housing. This isn't about increasing capacity, it's about providing dignity, stability and hope for hundreds of families and children in our community who are facing housing insecurity. Here in Colchester, we're seeing the same pressures that we're seeing nationwide. As Philip said, at the end of March, 459 households were in temporary accommodation, and that includes 481 children. They're not just statistics, they represent real people, real family and real challenges. The excellent work our colleagues do in CBH in preventing homelessness helps ensure more families can stay in their home, and they should be praised for keeping up with this challenging environment. I particularly want to thank Karen Lohman for her tireless work to bring the original project over the line. The additional 113 units the report is proposing today will build on the successful start to find new ways to provide temporary accommodation. These homes will offer a safe, stable environment for people who need it most, including those fleeing domestic abuse, those recovering from trauma, and those simply trying to get back on their feet. But while we act locally, we must speak nationally. I urge Cabinet in joining me on calling the government to provide urgent clarity on the future of the Housing Review Account settlement. As highlighted in the Southwark-led report, over 100 councils, including Colchester, co-signed. Councils need certainty and long-term financial planning tools. A 10-year rent settlement indexed to CPI +1 would allow us to plan confidently and sustainably for a new generation of council housing. Without this, our ability to invest in new homes is severely constrained, preventing councils building up their assets on the balance sheet. We must also challenge the systemic barriers that prevent the most vulnerable from accessing housing. Recently, I've been working with survivors of financial abuse who often face poor credit rating through no fault of their own. This should not be a barrier to securing a safe and a stable home. We need national policy to recognise that these realities and protect those who have already endured so much. Finally, we must speak up for supported housing. This has recently come on my radar. Temporary accommodation is not always the right solution for those with complex needs. Supported housing plays a vital role in helping people live independently and with dignity. Yet in Colchester, when county-level funding is withdrawn, the burden falls disproportionately on local authorities. This is not sustainable with already overstretched finances. The government must recognise that supported housing is a core part of our housing mix and ensure it is properly funded, supported by the voluntary sector who can provide specialist skills that we don't have. Let's be clear, it's not about managing homelessness, it's about preventing it. The solution to preventing the use of temporary accommodation in the long term is proper investment in our homes and building quite literally for the future. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Kaylee. That's very well delivered and one illustration of your passion for and knowledge of the subject. Thank you. And you made a kind of request, a plea, that the council should formally make its position, add its voice to others. I'll make sure that we do that. I'll make that personal as well. So in the Deputy Leader's absence, but absolutely I'm sure with her support and yours, I will write, as you've requested, just to reaffirm what our position should be on this. I have to say there's I don't want to repeat the same words as before, but this is so deep a challenge for a government that in this respect at least it's absolutely right to focus on housing as an engine for growth and to meet need. They've got a difficult space. I hope that they take it. And we've got to make sure our voice across the local government community is heard when they wrestle with those difficult choices, which will be about the bottom line, won't they? They all have a cost, but we'll make sure that your points and others are captured. Thank you. I'll take that away as an action for myself, Kelly, and thank you very much for all you've done in this area. I hope you'll stay as involved as you are at this time. Mark Crawley.
Thank you, Leader. I want to speak very much in favour of this paper. It is a further step down a really successful route, which is enabling us to deliver more temporary accommodation to those in greatest need. So I want to thank the housing team, from Philip down to Karen, down to all of those officers across the patch that are working on delivering this and working on delivering safe accommodation for the people down at Beyond the Box. I want to thank Paul Smith for working on this previously as a Lib Dem cabinet member, and for Julie hopefully delivering further improvements going forward, and Kaylee for her efforts and knowledge on it and comments this evening. There's an absolute moral imperative to do this, and Kaylee outlined some of that, the social justice involved, ensuring children have a permanent place to stay and they can go to school safely, that they can have solace and security in a place longer than a few nights that sadly hotel provision may provide. So this is a real step forward. And also from the resources point of view, with Anna sitting across me, we know that this is a big cost pressure each year, continuing to increase upon our budgets to pay for hotels or temporary accommodation, and this is a much more sustainable and lower cost way of delivering high quality housing for people. I just wanted to touch as well on Kaylee's comments about a sort of housing settlement for government. We absolutely do need that. That is security for housing for people, but also security for us to know where we're heading with our housing programme, and that we can deliver security for those people. And I also think our voice does need to be heard, and it needs to be heard ahead of developers, because developers continue to lobby government for housing being built, especially in the southeast where they can turn a profit. But we have a growing need for affordable and social housing that needs to be built first and before the profits of developers. So that's where we need to get our voice in there. One comment I would make is that scrutiny last night, Councillor Rowe brought up an issue he continues to bring up, which is about prefab housing. And I know you have answered this question before, but I just want to say that with Beyond the Box, we are thinking out of the box and delivering there, but also we continue to look at other options, and I wondered if Philip could just say where we are with those other options, and to ensure that Councillor Rowe does get that answer to explain where we have been with it and where we'll continue to think outside of the box. Thank you, Leader.
Thank you. Before I go to ask Philip to speak, there's a couple of other members who'd like to make a remark. So I saw Chris, and then Andrea and Jocelyn. Thank you, in that order.
Thank you, David. I share all of Councillor Rippingale's comments this evening. I'm supportive of what's in front of us, but I think with a caveat, and that is we know that the student accommodation that we're using is far from perfect. It's better than nothing, but it's far from perfect. So I think we need to put whatever pressure we can bring to bear on central government. We need to look at our own resources to see what we can do in terms of providing social housing, because I know we often talk about affordable housing. Affordable housing, though, let's bear in mind, affordable housing is not affordable for a significant proportion of the residents of Colchester. So we need to have social housing. We've managed to build a small number of units in Colchester in my time as a councillor, But for too many decades now, local authorities haven't been able to build the level, the numbers of social housing units that we need to address what is a national problem. But we know from the figures in front of us this evening, and I'll just look at those when I report on the next item, that in Colchester in particular, there is a difficulty with the numbers of households that are in temporary accommodation due to homelessness. So it's something that we need to take as a priority.
Thank you. I argued it would. Andrea.
I just wanted to go back on the modular housing thing, because this is something myself and Councillor Smith have looked at over a period of about 12 months. We've spoken to various modular housing providers, and unfortunately, they're about 20% more expensive than traditional builds at the moment. And when that changes, I am sure we would go to that as an option, mostly because they're so much quicker to put up. And there is a factor, and obviously I'm not going to take credit for this because it's Paul that looks at the figures, but some of the companies also offer finance deals, which means that instead of spending all this money on putting families in hotels, you could actually just be paying off an instalment to them. So there is that factor that means that it's breaking down that 20%, but at the moment financially it is not cheaper. I have discussed this with Councillor Rowe as well, but he doesn't seem to want to accept that. And the only other point I'd make is to agree that, you know, until we get more money from government to build social housing, we are in a pickle. And this is a personal view, but I also think they need to review the right to buy because it's killing us.
Yeah, agreed. Thank you. Jocelyn.
Thank you. Yes, as with others, I'd really like to echo and support Councillor Rippingale in her statement and all that she said today, and also to thank her for all her work previously as well with Paul Smith when he was a portfolio holder, and I know that that provides an excellent foundation, and they'll continue to work with Councillor Julie Young as a portfolio holder this year. You know, I support this paper in terms of the provision of more units of the former student housing, because something that is a real concern for me is thinking about the amount of particularly, say, children that can be in temporary accommodation. The accommodation here at this site offers more of a linkage into local communities and makes it easier for children to be part of a community and attend schools. And I'm also pleased to see the way in which, for example, there are sort of community and voluntary organisations that can work with statutory partners in providing support to people at that site. And, you know, many thanks to everyone in the housing team as well that's helped make that a successful site to for people to reside. So, you know, as I say, it's a real concern for me, especially to see children, and they can be impacted with temporary accommodation. So I think this offers a really good practical solution. Just echoing what others have said as well, obviously long-term solutions, we do need more housing. For example, there's a site in my ward, Colchester Northern Gateway South, which is earmarked for affordable housing in the future. And I think Colchester has really led the way in our provision of housing for residents and taking a lead on that. You know, I'd really like to see council housing as part of that mix at that site going forward in the future. But I'd like to support this paper. Thank you, Leader.
Thank you very much indeed. And for a full house tonight, I'll go to Councillor Goss.
So I visited the existing accommodation that we've procured with Karen Lohman less than 2 weeks ago, and I'm doing a follow-up to the Hope project this Friday as well, because it really does pay for councillors to really know what's going on in the city and see it firsthand. So to see people that are affected by homelessness, they are human beings at the end of the day. They are human beings, and putting people in hotel rooms for long periods is not good for people's mental health or well-being, but it's better than them being on the street, frankly, which can be quite a dangerous, precarious existence for people. So doing this, extending it, investing in it is absolutely the right thing to do. It's also in an area with good public transport links, which is absolutely fundamental and at least people's diets can hopefully improve slightly because they will have communal kitchens rather than trying to boil pot noodles or noodles in a kettle in a travel lodge. So, you know, fine for a holiday for a few days, but it is not right for people's existence for months and months. And I think if people haven't gone and visited, I would compel them to do it, because it is a project that is leading and something that we at least can be proud of in difficult circumstances for people having to deal with this day in, day out. So fully support anything we can do to improve the quality of life for people in terrible circumstances.
Thank you, Martin. Thank you, Cabinet. You know, those are from the heart and the head here, because the bottom line helped. Emotionally, we connect to people in challenge and difficulties while we're in this role as members of this council, and that's true for many of our officers, I know as well. So I want to perhaps, Philip, to go to you and see if there's anything we're going to ask you to introduce, but we've kind of done your work for you, Philip, I think. But if there's anything else you'd like to bring out from the report before I draw us to a close.
Thank you. I actually don't think there's anything else to draw out. I think it's been covered. I think that the key point probably is that the existing work that we're doing with Beyond the Box has delivered what we were anticipating, which means that we can go into a second phase with confidence. And to echo the points that as temporary accommodation, it is transforming lives compared to the alternative offer. And my final observation, because I'm not wanting to repeat what's already been said, is that this isn't something that CBH or anyone can do in isolation. I think it echoes your point. This has been a team effort. You know, CBH wouldn't be doing this if it wasn't for the support of Pam, senior council officers, the portfolio holder for housing. Councillor Smith and I worked in a lot of detail over a lot of time on this. All councillors have been very supportive for this, and Beyond the Box have also delivered against their commitments. So just my point, it has been a real team effort, and my thanks to everyone for that. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Philip, and you are entitled and required to take some credit for yourself, because it's a tough road, but your point's well made, and Beyond the Box in particular, you know, we have publicity terms drawn some attention to that. We should. Like Councillor Goss and others, I've been down there too, and it's just great to see how they provided an environment, the personal touch, the people's sense, people to connect with, and it is such a step change as described by others from what can happen. And let's just say it a few dots, right? You can end up in, and it's a lovely place to visit for a day out, in B&B in Clacton. You know. My concern, I have to say, and I'll end on this, without being hopeless but hopeful, is this is generational. 42 or 47% national or local increase in a year. You know, we are on an escalator, I'm afraid. We can't get off this. So what we've got to do is continue to look for imaginative ways in which we can meet need, at least harm and best good. So thank you everybody for a good set of exchanges, for the record, but for the public as well. Thank you for the team. We do have confidential papers here. I'm going to take the advice I had before we came in, which is though we will have a look at those, I'm taking the view we have looked at them before coming to the public session. Now I'm content, subject to that secondary examination afterwards, that we agree. Are we so content? All right, thank you. That's in 2.1 of the paper. Thank you very much indeed, Philip. Now here's the easy bit. If you choose to slip out, nobody's going to mind. But you're welcome to stay.
Thank you
we
very
could
much.
make you stay, Andrea, like Sir Vaughan has suggested, which would seem a little cruel to me, Philip. But thank you very much, to be serious, and for you, Councillor Rippingale. We value visiting councillors who take the time and effort to come here in person. Thank you. Right, next item, folks, is item 8.1, the April 24, March 25 key performance indicators and strategic plan, delivery plan. I know that we've got a scrutiny report, which I suggest we take first. We've got no visiting councillors or speakers. Councillor Pearson, Chris, you were there last night, so let me just read out the recommendations if I might, and then I'll hand them over to you. So we got them as these documents have emerged late in the day. So last night the scrutiny panel made 2 recommendations in respect of item 8.1 performance report, and for the public and for those members who I know will want to hear how we take this, we really value the work of our committees. Now, those tests and challenge are essential, whether it's for governance and audit or any other panel, or in this case, scrutiny. So they made 2 recommendations. The first was that the council increases its communications to advertise the assistance and advice that the council can potentially give to tenants of private rental properties who experience difficulty, and to urge tenants in that position to approach the council to seek help. That's the first, or was that effect. The second was that we direct officers to provide a forward forecast of expected demand for temporary accommodation, the subject we've just been talking about. I've got real sympathy with the second, less with the first, but I've got to go to you, Chris, if I might, first as agreed, and then to Jocelyn.
Thank you. So in terms of the 2 recommendations, I have to say that it's been a baptism of fire taking on this role, having spent last night at scrutiny panel going through the same documents, and then again today. I think with regard to the increases in communication to advertise assistance, and we already do some of that, so I think it would be appropriate for Cabinet to take that away and have a look at, with the Chief Exec and the officer team, what it's possible to do in terms of any additional support, whilst not putting undue pressure on our stretched officer team at this particular time. So I would suggest to Cabinet members that we take that away and review that as the work that we do with that recommendation. With regard to the second recommendation about producing a forward forecast of expected demand, I think that's eminently sensible, because that starts to get us thinking about where we're at. We heard from Philip Sullivan this evening that the proportion of individuals in temporary accommodation, households rather, in temporary accommodation in the city rose by nearly 50% in the last 12 months. In order to be able to respond to those challenges, we need to have some idea of those challenges coming down the pipeline. So I think I would ask Cabinet to agree to that recommendation.
Thank you, Chris. Jocelyn.
Thank you. I'd like to echo what Councillor Pearson said, particularly with regard to the first recommendation. I've got some professional insight. As a day job, I work in the advice service of a national charity, and as is common practice in national charities, you often undertake promotions, mail shots, to help publicise issues that you want people to seek advice on. Now, that can often lead to spikes in demand, and that can sometimes put pressures on services. So that's why, particularly knowing the great efforts of the team and the advice that the housing team can provide in assisting people, I would just be concerned about them being overwhelmed by any spikes in demand and that causing difficulty for them managing capacity. So that's why I would support reviewing that. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments from colleagues? If not, then I think we're agreed that on the first item, so on both items, we thank the scrutiny panel for their recommendations. On the first, we will ask the portfolio holder for housing to look at how we publicise the offer of help and assistance we make. I have to say, I know it's extensive and it's taken up by many people. So there is for the narrative to a degree a corrective. This may not be seen by members of the scrutiny panel. Why would they need to? But we are providing help to hundreds every month in this and other respects. In fact, if you go to the first lines of our website, actually give you a click on to where you can provide financial support and assistance. So I think it may be it may be that we need to go back to the scrutiny panel. But in terms of recommendations, and we'll take this away for review as recommended then, and we'll ask that there is a short note back to the scrutiny panel to describe where help and support can be found and what our response is. But we'll leave that with the deputy leader. The second one, we agree that we need forward forecasts of expected demand for temporary accommodation. And we need it for two reasons. Well, three. One, the key performance indicators. Two, for budget, Anna. And well, you can help us, because I've not been satisfied that we've been as clear as I would want us to be, given that it's a complex financial equation. How many people calling on what services at what cost, then related to the budget and the equation, which is to get a measure of government support. And I think that some clarity around that could be helpful. And the third one is, of course, not just the budget, it's the people and how we might respond to their needs. So we'll accept the second and we'll take away the first. Agreed? Agreed. Thank you very much. Right, so on to the main item itself. Chris, I mean, as you've said, you've had plenty of time to prepare for this. All year you've been looking at key performance indicators. You are a man who knows more about this than anybody else in this room, at least. But the fairer thing to be said is that each member of the Cabinet has a sectional responsibility for part of this whole. In my recommendation to you, but it's your choice, is given that performance is given a real going over by a robust governance and audit, and also, in certain circumstances, scrutiny panel. We don't need to repeat all of this, but you might want to draw out just a few highlights about where we stand. Thank you.
Thank you, Leader. And you know, it's my my usual stance is to be succinct, so I will take you through. So you, in front of you, have the year-end report on key performance indicators. It's fair to note that 9 of the KPIs, as they're known for short, were in green, and 10 of them were in red. Some of them significantly, some of them just. The first of those was the proportion of council tax collected against the target, which, although it didn't quite meet the target, it was less than
Councillor Corney,
0.5%.
you might want to monitor it.
But I think it's fair to note that that is balanced by the 0.5% over target collection of business rates. Fly tipping incidents across the city have risen quite markedly, by nearly 50% over the last 12 months. So, and that's something that I've spoken with some of the team about, but obviously I will pass on to Martin as the portfolio holder for. I think I would just like at this stage to point out that from the investigation that I did, much of that is not down to what we sometimes see in the news, you know, large-scale commercial or non-commercial tipping around the city. 1 or 2 incidents of that have occurred, but most of it is small scale. The numbers of households in temporary accommodation per 1,000 households, we've already touched on that. I think for me the biggest concern is that these figures show that we are actually higher than any other authority in the east of England. So that's something that we need to be looking at and addressing, and that's why I said earlier I think it's a priority for us. Repairs completed within the target timescale. I know from my time of chairing the Governance and Audit Committee and talking with Philip Sullivan and the rest of the CBH team on a regular basis that they have worked significantly on that, and that is improving. And similarly, the percentage of homes that do not meet the decent home standards, that gap is closing quite rapidly, as well as customer satisfaction with latest repair. The next 2 that are in the red, sickness absence, both corporate, and they're separated between those who work in waste and recycling and those who work in the rest of the council's activities. In both cases, they are above the targets. We know that there's a significant issue in the waste and recycling team and has been for some time. And hopefully, as we move to the new waste collection process, which I supported many years ago now, we will impact on those sickness absences. Finally, additional homes. The number of homes that were built in the city over the last year was significantly down, several hundred down on target. That said, we know that Colchester has been at the forefront of building new homes for many a year now. And in the main, that is probably down to the housing market generally. And finally, social value in procurement is the final red, but that related to one contract. So I don't think there's anything for us to be concerned about there.
Thank you very much, Chris. Colleagues, anything else to add to that summary review? Okay. Well, look, I'm content. I'll bring out just one content, as in that's a fair capture of a lot of detailed work. I would just say, for those who are interested, and some are, that we've got an increasingly rich picture, including how we stand against others. So our performance against the KPI has to be seen against how do we stand against our peers. And in the round, we've always aimed to be, if we can, median or upper quartile. In other words, doing as well as most and better than some. And that's still a sensible aspiration, but increasingly we have to keep that under review alive to the costs of that delivery. So that's one bit of context. The only other I'd offer is that, of course, this is a year behind us. And that emerging picture has informed the KPIs we have set for 25, 26. I'm looking forward, Chris, to your equally succinct resume of all the greens that we will be seeing under your tutelage. All right, anything else, folks? If not, then we have done what's been asked to review. We are committed to robust performance management of key council services and the strategic plan and the indicators and delivery objectives with that. Are we content? Thank you. Thank you very much, Chris. I'll keep going in the old-fashioned way, which is the order of the agenda. We had talked about changing this around, just to keep everybody watching carefully. There's dozens who are glued to the screen. So the next item is 9.1 Amphora growth strategy. I'm very pleased to see Councillor Martin Warnes here. Martin, I know you'd like to speak at this item before we get to the G&A paper, and behind that, the papers that were put through G&A from Amphora, the board of which you chair. Martin.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Good evening, Cabinet members. I'll speak to the minute that is before you, and in doing so, I'll point out to be able to demonstrate the road to recovery that Amphora companies have taken since the market moved around its activities in the housing and energy companies. I'd point out that what you see before you demonstrates that the events company's underlying strength has basically shone through, and it is a company that has a growing reputation amongst both promoters and bands, and it's a company that others are benchmarking too. I'll also point out that the council's full service, known as Helpline, is also growing, and it is and that is considered to be a best-in-class service. And I'd point out too, the potential that lies ahead for the growth of the fibre company. So I would like to take this opportunity to put on record my thanks to Simon Coward and his team, and Richard Carr, who went before him, for their hard work in turning around the companies around from what was a difficult place that was inherited and which I also inherited as chair from my Conservative counterpart. Thank you.
Thank you very much indeed. Right, I'm going to ask Cabinet members if they've got any comments to make on either the 2 points or briefly on the associated paper. I say briefly because this has been through robust. I've got a personal oversight of this, which I'll get to at the end. So, Jocelyn first.
Thank you. I'd like to thank Councillor Warnes for his work as the appointed director. I know that he's done so much work in terms of working both with Richard and Simon and seeing sort of a transformation in terms of what the companies are able to provide. And it's fantastic to see the impact of the events work. You know, I've got my tickets myself to some events this year, so I will be reliving my youth. But it's great because it brings so many people into it. Colchester city centre that live in the wider area, but also people from beyond. It really showcases our city to its best. And also, you know, in terms of community, it brings people together. You know, so from a community's perspective, bring people together who enjoy these events. I think that's a great thing to be able to do. And it's also helping our local economy. So it's, you know, win-win. And also something that's sort of close to my heart, sort of working in the later life sector. It's good to see the work that's being done there and expanding work with sort of the care line. It's really good to see that we're able to support people, you know, at sort of all ranges of the age spectrum. So thank you, Leader.
Thank you very much. Colleagues, anything else? Chris, please.
Thank you. Yeah, I would like to echo Joss's comments about the work that Councillor Warnes and the rest of the board have done over the last couple of years, and also Richard and Simon. I know, having had close monitoring of CCHL at Governance and Audit, that there probably was a time 3 years ago when we weren't sure that it was an ongoing concern, but now I think it's very much on the up. And we will see with the forward business plan later on that is in fact the case. So I think well done to all those who have worked tirelessly to restructure CCHL over the last couple of years and refocus its activities. Should be commended for that work.
Thank you. And Martin, sorry I didn't respond to you, and I guess I should on behalf of us all. You and I speak on a regular basis, touch base, as I do with the MD, Simon Coward, and you'd have to bear with a bit more reflection. Back to you of my appreciation for what's being done and your role in this as well, because this has been a challenging process for all concerned, getting organisations that were in more difficulty than we had realised into much better shape has taken some collective will and effort. And it's taken a steady hand from you as well. And you will have had, I'm sure, to make your own adaptation to new people, new circumstances. I want to thank you and the board. Please pass on our thanks to them. As I was discussing with Cabinet members before we came in, Councillor Corey amongst others, we were struck by the fact that we've got layers. I'm teasing him here. This is a side joke. We've got layers of oversight, and of course there is a question there as to whether each of them adds an extra value, but I think it's how they come together that makes this an effective arrangement, and it's a balance between the board, governance and audit, the lead portfolio holder, which is myself, and moments like this that will give a space within which a well-run set of companies can thrive. And we have to have space, operating space, for talented commercial people, because they don't want to have their hand held all the time. We are an overhead. We're a necessary one, because as you and I have discussed, Martin, this is publicly owned, and the cost, the liabilities, the risks, and the profit ultimately will fall, and the reputational risk as well fall back to the council. But I think it's just very good news that over the last couple of years we've gone from difficult circumstances to strong performances, clear ambitions, and profitability. And so I want to ask you to pass that back to Simon and the team. And thank you for mentioning Richard Carr before, who came in and was a very steady pair of hands. So that's a long thank you, but there's a point here about us collectively, cabinet members included, providing an operating space within which the companies can thrive. So thank you for your part in that. All right, thank you very much indeed. Now, colleagues, we are not here to do more than that, but we have to respond to governance and audit recommendations. So the first of those was the growth strategy be noted. Noted and supported. The second is, I beg your pardon?
Sorry, Leader. That is the resolution of Governance and Audit Committee, that the growth strategy be noted. It's not a recommendation onto Cabinet. Cabinet may wish itself to consider whether it wishes to approve the growth strategy. Thank you, Leader.
Thank you. I love a correction, especially when it's done with such finesse. I play this back to Cabinet, where it was supportive of the recommendation as they had noted it and as we do too. Correct? Yeah, thank you. The second point, and this is the recommendation, so I'm probably on safer ground here, Monitoring Officer, recommended to Cabinet that it review at the earliest opportunity of the assistance of the Monitoring Officer, and that indeed is yourself. The tax liability of Colchester Commercial Holdings Limited financial year 23-24. Now, these are interesting arcane points that probably the lawyers amongst us will enjoy, and it had, as I recall, and because we have the chair, the former chair here, it led to a very long and bruising conversation, as I recall it. I don't intend to repeat that here, but what would you like to say to us, Andrew?
Yes, thank you, Leader. If Cabinet so wish, we will undertake this review and obviously do it in consultation with my good colleague here, the Section 151 officer. Thank you.
I know that Section 151 officer is looking forward immensely to yet another interesting Colchester challenge to add to her others. And I'm not going to ask you for a review now, but if you're content to help with that, then we will take that item away. Are we agreed, colleagues? We'll take this through its proper process. All right, thank you. We do have in Part B, in depth, the balance of the papers that relate to that growth strategy. I'm very happy to stop at the close of the open session and see if there's a conversation there, but for the time being, are we content, as just discussed, to applaud actually the progress made? All right. Okay, thank you very much indeed. With the consent of the monitoring officer, we'll go to item 9.2. Well, we can't be even any surer where we are. Right, so appointments to external organisations and council groups. Now, just worth saying, for those who do pour through this, it really matters, and around the table there are members who've been appointed and who are at this time to any one of a number of organisations with whom we have formal or informal relationships. So we place members on boards, we have understandings about the help support they need, about their role in public life. We want to encourage and support them. So these groups have been identified in Appendix A, and what we're asked to do, and there's a series of recommendations here, is to give our formal support to the understanding that's set out in the appendices here, the representatives to various external organisations and groups, to authorise me on your behalf to make determination where a nomination is in dispute. How could that be? If a vacancy arises or if an appointment is to be made, and there's a couple of specifics there. To appoint myself as the Armed Forces Champion, which is quite personal to me, given my military links and family and my past service alongside the military. To appoint Councillor Law as the Council's Equality, Diversity and Inclusion Champion. That is obviously a woke phrase which needs to be revised as soon as possible. And then to note the reports about the work undertaken by appointees to external organisations as set out in Appendix B, and I'll come back to that in just a second. So that's a summary of the paper in front of us. I want to ask colleagues if they've got any remarks they want to make about the content, detail, the way in which we run this. Chris.
Thank you, Councillor King. The only thing that I'd like to just point out is that on the local highways panel, Councillor Mike Lilly is suggested as the Labour member of that, but as Mike has ascended to the heady heights of mayor, he has declined to continue, and we would like to, the Labour group would like to see Councillor Elizabeth Alaki Akinyemi put in his place.
It's in the paper, I'm told, in the supplementary agenda. Thank you very much. See, our officers are always ahead of us. One more illustration for us. Thank you, Chris. Obviously supported. And any other points? And these are a matter of detail that need to be brought out. Just a reminder, we can go back and adjust and amend as we need. Councillor Corey Mark.
There is a slight matter of admin. I'm currently down as a substitute member for the North Essex Parking Partnership Joint Committee to support my dear colleague. But I rarely can. It seems to be days when I'm working in school, but it's just something for us to take back. I thought I had ducked that one, but Martin does get to most of them and does a very good job at it. But just something for us to take back internally.
Thank you. And I want to sort of thank for the record, and I will be writing out to those who've served this last year, as well as those who are going to serve the coming year. Now, our thanks as Cabinet, if we could record our thanks for those who served the Council and cross-party. Shall I wait a second? Is there Andrew? Are we okay? All right, thank you very much. I know there's a lot of detail here, and I'm grateful for the pulling of this together. So we record our thanks then and confirm the appointments as set out in the paper. Thank you very much indeed. I just want to note that there are records of the meeting of records from the post holders in Annex B. There are some recommendations in one of those from Councillor Naylor. I will go to Councillor Naylor directly rather than lose sight of those. There's some interesting observations that she's made. I think it's on pages 119 to 121, so I should go back on that. So we will get out, Richard, I'm looking to you, in the coming week or so, those letters of appointment, and I will respond to Councillor Naylor at that point. Anything else on this item? There's a lot of paper, a lot of work lies behind it. It matters. All right, okay, thank you. Item 9.2 having been done, 10.1 is progress of responses to the public. That looked complete, but I go to Richard.
Thank you, Chair. I've got nothing to add to the written report, Chair.
Thank you. And I say each time because it's a truth, until we can get Copilot or an AI version of you, which I'm sure we can be working out, Richard, do a fabulous job for us. In any event, it still needs that human overview of whatever gets produced with help. Thank you very much for all of that and to the rest of the team. That concludes part A, in which case I need to ask, because he particularly loves it, the former deputy leader, excuse me,
Yes, Leader, thank you. I will move the motion for the exclusion of the public. I move that in accordance with Section 100A of the Local Government Act 1972 and in accordance with the Local Authorities Regulations 2012, the public, including members of the press, be excluded from the meeting for the following items as they include the likely disclosure of exempt information as defined in paragraphs 3 and 5 of Part 1 of the Schedule 12A of the Local Government Act 1972. Is that motion supported?
it is agreed. Thank you. So the live stream will stop. Graham, thank you very much. And any others for